Okay, we're pleased to welcome back local historian Ken Pearce to the studio. And today we're going to hear about Treaty House. Loads of history behind that. Isn't that right, Ken?
Yes, indeed. By 1530, a lawyer called Dr. John Hughes had purchased land in Uxbridge and was having a large house built. Hughes came originally from Wales, but he obtained a degree in law at Oxford University and then entered the service of Cardinal Wolsey in his household at Hampton Court. Later, he joined the court of Henry VIII and was involved in the king's case for divorce with Catherine of Aragon. In 1526, he purchased the estate in Uxbridge for about £200. The house he created was E-shaped, built with red brick, and stood in large grounds surrounded by a high wall. By the time the house was completed, Dr. Hughes was working for Archbishop Thomas Cranmer at Lambeth Palace and later became involved in the dissolution of the monasteries. He also worked for Thomas Cromwell and was elected an MP for Middlesex in 1542. But John Hughes died the following year, leaving his Uxbridge estate to his wife Margaret and eldest son Thomas. Unlike his father, Thomas was quite content to live the life of a country gentleman. And the house, by the way, had now become known as The Place. The house passed eventually to Thomas's son Robert, who later moved to Yorkshire, and the house then became the home of his sister with the unusual name of Grizzle. Robert eventually sold the place to Lord Bergavenny, that's Abergavenny without the A, for £700. He was a member of the Neville family. In 1613, ownership of the place passed to another lawyer, Sir John Bennet. He had worked for the Archbishop of York and had impressed King James, who made him a judge. Bennet bought a lot of land in Harlington and also Dawley and the manor of Northolt. In 1617, he married as his third wife Leonora Vierendeels, daughter of a gentleman from Antwerp in Holland. She was a very large lady whose size provoked comment. In Uxbridge, it was said that if she ever went back to Holland, the boat would probably sink. It's interesting to note, therefore, that there is a very flattering memorial to Dame Leonora in St. Margaret's Church, showing a very slender woman in a reclining position. Unfortunately, Sir John was found guilty of corruption and inappropriation of funds, and he was imprisoned for 3 years and fined the enormous sum of £20,000. His family managed to find that money, mostly by the sale of his property. But he died in 1627 and Dame Leonora in 1638. But by now the Civil War had broken out in this country, and as you know, it was King versus Parliament, Cavaliers versus Roundheads. In 1645, King Charles had left London and was living in Oxford. The parliamentary party, of course, remained in the capital. And the king suggested that talks should be held in the hope that the two sides could settle their differences and bring the war to a close. But there was only one place at that time between London and Oxford that could offer appropriate accommodation for the talks, and that was in Uxbridge. So in January 1645, the two sides met. The king did not attend, and Cromwell himself did not come. So the Duke of Richmond led the royal commissioners, and the Earl of Northumberland was for the parliamentarians. The house selected for those talks was The Place, then the home of a Mr. Carr. The talks lasted 3 weeks, but not a single agreement could be reached on any topic. And so the two sides parted. No treaty was signed. Nevertheless, the building became known as the Treaty House, although of course it ought to be called really the No Treaty House. The house changed hands several times after that, but about 1790 the Grand Junction Canal Company acquired a section of the estate parallel to the River Cole. The aim of the Canal Company, of course, was to link the Thames at Brentford with the Midlands Canal system. This made the estate less desirable. So about 1800, 2/3 of the house was demolished, including the large room where the treaty talks had been held. Today, only one wing of the house survives and has become a public house, officially known, of course, as the Crown and Treaty House. On another occasion, I hope to talk about the rest of the history of the property.
That's right, because there's some interesting wooden panelling, isn't it, on the first floor?
Yes.
But that's another story. A very interesting one too. Thank you very much, Ken. A lovely story about the Crown and Treaty. £20,000 in the 1600s. That's a fortune.
Enormous.
Unbelievable. What's that worth now?
I don't know.
Okay. Right, more stories to come. Stay tuned.